ago, came within that 7th game of moving on past Cleveland. But they had adjustments and injuries, and guys were back that weren't there at the end of the year for them last year, most notably Kyrie Irving. And then all of a sudden, they finish the season, a lot of question marks, and blow away the first round, have a great win in game number 1, and now the whole thing has seemed to have fallen apart for whatever the reasons are that I can't explain totally.
Yeah, Coach, I can't explain it either. And listening to you talk, it seems like this series sort of has embodied this team all year, and that it's been up and down, inconsistent. You have a great game where you say, okay, they're turning the corner, game 1 on the road after a series where they won all 4 against Indiana, and then they lose game 2 and they just sort of seem to implode here at home. And then the comments afterward, I mean, we've seen this behavior. These type of words spoken post-game from Kyrie throughout the season, but their play they don't seem connected. They seem disjointed. It's like they're trying to win with their offense, which I thought last year when they were really good defensively was their calling card. I tell you what, I'm not surprised. I'll be surprised if they get back to Boston and make this a series, but. Just disappointing on so many fronts to get booed and have people, upset with your performance after Game 4. The expectations were so high. We all had them. We all kept waiting. We kept waiting throughout the season. They'll finally figure it out. They'll figure it out now that they're in the postseason. And it's just sort of more of the same, and if anything, may look worse than it did at times during the regular season.
Players are saying their offense is affecting their defense, which is where they hung their hat. They have the worst offensive rating of any of the 8 teams left in the postseason so far. By the way, teams with a 3-1 lead, 238-11 all-time in best-of-7 series, and the Bucks have not lost 3 in a row all season long, so a lot stacked up against the Celtics. Game 2 on Wednesday, of course, the Rockets and the Warriors. Golden State, the splashing has been limited so far, shooting 38.5% in the regular season from three-point range, 32% through 4 against the Rockets. Shots fall or they don't fall, as you guys know, but is this Golden State's biggest issue in this series?
Well, no. I mean, I think James Harden is their biggest issue. I mean, the way he has played has been spectacular, but these were shots, at the end of the day, these are shots they've hit. I thought Curry kind of got going there at the end. He hit some shots, and he was a little bit more aggressive attacking the basket. You just need one of them to have a big game. And they're the type of team that, Clay, Steph, Game 5 can easily get going. And with that, along with the continued stellar play of Kevin Durant, may be enough. But yeah, I mean, I was just surprised. I'd see both of them sort of struggling like they have. And Klay Thompson, I mean, he couldn't buy a basket there in Game 4. But stopping James Harden, the way he played, the way they feed off of him and his play, and it really he was just spectacular as he's been throughout the entire playoffs.
Grant, let me give you another area to look at. And besides the Harden headache that they have, one other thing is, as you know from all your years of playing, on a missed shot, when a team gets an offensive rebound, that three-point line is wide open. As a result, they had 13 offensive rebounds. They wound up with 50 three-point attempts last night because it's so hard when you're trying to go in and get a rebound and the team comes up with their own ball. And there's that guy out there waiting because they don't move. They just wait. They know if they got a rebound, they're kicking it out. They're not trying to power it back up right away. And when you're giving up 50 three-point attempts, it's a lot of points to make up if you're not shooting the ball well.
Well, rebounds have been a big problem in Houston for the Warriors. They were minus 26 in the 2 games on the road in this series. So the first chance for a team to advance to the conference finals and a must-have Game 5 coming up on Wednesday. Believe it or not, the NBA Finals are just more than 3 weeks away.
Relive Shaq's favorite moment.
Tip. A half hour is forever in the NBA. Then again, on this date in 1995, Reggie Miller reminded us what a sharpshooter can accomplish in just 9 seconds. Miller scored 8 points in that span to help the Pacers beat the Knicks in Game 1 of the Eastern Conference semifinals. Indy would go on to win the series in 7 games. Of course, Greg Anthony has seen that clip hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times and still
Thanks,
can't
Mo.
stop it from
Matt,
happening.
Thank you for bringing that back.
Well, it happened on this
I was hoping that I would
date.
get to see that for the 14th millionth time
Exactly.
today. I appreciate that.
It happened on this date, and you're going to be on the show, so how could we not? 2 threes and a couple of
You
free
had
throws
to.
by Reggie in 9 seconds to help Indy beat your Knicks. How often are you reminded of that night?
Just the days that end in Y. I'll leave it at that.
Well, you know what? It was a good career. It's just one moment in a very good career, right? All right, Joel Embiid.
Yes, it was.
Joel Embiid at this point, Greg, we still don't know if he's going to play. They still say he is probable because of this upper respiratory infection. How much changes for both teams if he can't go or just isn't himself tonight?
I think it changes a lot for Philadelphia. I think they have to play much faster if he's not out there. Secondly, if he plays and plays the way he did in Game 4, nothing changes. Listen, he was a factor defensively. I'll grant you that. You know, he wasn't completely non-existent, but for a guy of his caliber to play the amount of minutes he played and take 7 shots, that to me is not a recipe for success. I don't care how you slice it. You can say, oh, if Tobias hits 1 shot or if Kawhi doesn't hit a shot. We're in the sports business. It's black and white. Either you win the game or you don't. And most competitive series always come down to a play here or a play there. And so I think in order for Philly to have a legitimate chance in this series, Joel Embiid not only has to play, but he has to play well to combat the fact that Toronto right now with Kawhi Leonard, he has been unstoppable. To me, he's been the best player in the postseason.
Hey, Greg, this is a bad combination right here. When Toronto holds opponents under 100 in the postseason, they're 6-1. And when Philly gets held under 100, they're 1-9 for the season. So where do they find these extra points now? Embiid banged up. Who do they go to? Who can give them what they need?
Well, in some respects, and Coach, you've been in a ton of these playoff scenarios. It almost helps you when some of your best players don't have good games, right? Tobias Harris goes 2 of 13 in the last game. I assume, especially if you see Toronto go to this big lineup, which they had some success with in Game 4, I think you're going to see him much more in attack mode with this group. I think he can pick up some of the scoring. I think Ben Simmons has got to find a way to get them into the open court a little bit more. That's where he's at his best. That has also got to happen for Philadelphia. And remember, you also want to play fast because, in essence, Toronto's playing 6 guys. I mean, they're not going very deep. Nick Nurse does not have a lot of trust in his bench. In part, they don't have OG Anunoby. And then, obviously, the size factor for Philly doesn't allow him to go with that small ball backcourt with Van Vliet and Kyle Lowry. So if I'm Philly, it's about pushing the pace, taking care of the basketball, and forcing and putting the onus on Toronto. I think if they do that, they have a chance here on the road in what's going to be a very hostile environment.
Yeah, Greg, you partially answered my question. Obviously, we saw the adjustment Game 3 and Game 4. Brett Brown took the ball out of Ben Simmons' hands. Really, Jimmy Butler was the primary ball handler, creating for himself and his teammates, which sort of hurts Simmons and his ability to be productive out there when the ball's not in his hands. You did mention getting out in transition for Ben Simmons and being effective in the open court where he's extremely dangerous. But assuming that weren't to happen, do you envision Simmons getting the ball a little bit more in Game 5 in the half-court set as opposed to Jimmy Butler being that primary ball handler?
Grant, I think you hit it right on the head. I don't think there's a scenario where Ben Simmons doesn't have the ball more. The thing about Jimmy, as good as Jimmy is, if Jimmy's the guy that is taking the volume of shots because of a game plan, I don't think Philly is as good. Now, he can have success, but remember, if he's having success, I'm not changing my defense for Jimmy. If Ben Simmons is in attack mode and having success and Joel Embiid, they put more pressure on your defense because of their style. When Embiid's getting a lot of touches, you're loaded, you're rotating, you're in doubles. When Simmons is getting a lot of touches, he's got 2 feet in the paint, which forces your defense to have to compensate, which creates better opportunities. So I think their 2 cornerstone young franchise caliber players have to have a significant impact on the road in a hostile environment. This is what it's all about. If you want to get to a championship caliber level, you've got to be able to face the adversity and perform when it's most difficult. And you know Toronto is coming in here with a sense of urgency, knowing that they can ill afford to lose this game and face elimination on the road.
Simmons has averaged just 10 a game so far, and Jimmy Butler said it between games as well. He wants Simmons to attack every chance he gets. Greg Anthony with us from Toronto ahead of Game 5 tonight. We'll see you tonight on the broadcast.
All right, guys.
On the way here, home is where the wins have been for the Warriors and Rockets so far. How James Harden and Houston can upend that trend when we come back.
It's time.